Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish, where we learn how to build a platform with some of the foremost experts out there, teaching us skills and going over fears that we have as we're moving forward and growing our business. Before we get started, I want to remind you to go over and take the Promote, Profit, Publish quiz. You can find that at www.promoteprofitpublishquiz.com. Find out where your skill set lies and where you need to improve. 2020 is coming up and we're at year end. So you're really going to want to take a look at that quiz and find out what you need to plan for next year. So I'm really excited about today's guest. I'm always excited. I know you're like, oh my gosh, I hear this every time. Say something different. But one of the things that I hear over and over from people is how introverted they are. And then they have to go out, they become entrepreneurs, and they have to sell, and how terribly scary that is. So my guest today is Ron Hori, and he is a natural introvert who learned how to be comfortable speaking to groups of people and socializing. He struggled in the beginning of his business to make sales and learned that sailing's a learned skill too, but so is selling, is a learned skill. He can relate to introverts who are struggling in sales because he's been there. He's done this himself. He's been a sales trainer since 2012. He represents Eric Lofholm International, also known as ELI, a global sales training company. He enjoys working with people, not only to find out their ideal customer, but to elegantly make more sales. He's had a 20-year career in high-tech project management and software development and support. And he took a package from the company he was at, he took a package to leave to focus on sales more in his home business. He has basic and advanced software sales skills, which is really awesome. And after 12 months, he was invited to be an independent sales trainer by the president of the company. So that's how much he improved over time. So he went to college at UCLA. He went to the University of Hawaii and graduated from UC Santa Cruz, where something just came up in the middle of my prompter. I lost the whole thing here. No.
Oh, no.
Oh my gosh, that's never happened. So he graduated from UC Santa Cruz and with a degree in psychology, and has spent 4 years in the U.S. Air Force, where he learned computer programming. And that led him to his career in Silicon Valley. So I'm not going to get into the rest of this. You can all see it in the sales notes because I'm reading poorly and I've lost it all anyway. We're live, so who cares? We're just going to go on. So welcome, Ron.
Let's rock and roll.
So that's pretty interesting, the way that you got from where you were. And I would imagine, being in high tech, that there were a lot of introverts, or if not introverts, at least overly analytical software programmers who
Exactly.
weren't eligible to sell.
That's absolutely true. In fact, briefly, when I was in high school, I was really good in math and science, and I thought, oh, I'll major in engineering in college. And so I have quite a strong analytical streak. Sometimes I say I'm a recovering analytical because I have to remind myself to stop at a certain point when I get too deep. Let's say, and I'm creating a PowerPoint, and I'm saying, okay, I don't need to adjust this font. I don't need to adjust these colors. Ron, just stop. It's good enough.
Yeah.
But when I was working in high tech, you're right. I was surrounded by people who were geeks and nerds in a nice way, very skilled, very technical. And so when I was working in Silicon Valley in high tech, I was not in sales. I was not in marketing. So I can briefly tell you a story when I was in grammar school, middle school, and high school, how I had to really break out of my shell. Well, you're right. When I was in high tech, I was surrounded. I was part of the analytical genre, you might say, in terms of those coding skills, project management. Had nothing to do with sales at all. So it is definitely a learned skill.
Wow. And I was recently at an event, an entrepreneur event, where people were talking about their new inventions. And a metallurgical engineer walked up and started telling me about how he designed the board, like the electrical motherboard or whatever it was. And my eyes literally started, I was like, where are the cookies?
Glazing over, you're saying, how can I get out of this?
I mean, I'm sure that amongst themselves, this is really interesting conversation, but it wasn't for me. So, when you say you're a natural introvert, how did that lead you to sales? Because that just seems like it's the polar opposite of being an introvert.
It actually is, and it starts back when I was, let's say, in grammar school and junior high. Well, there's one thing I learned is there's a difference between being an introvert, and we can go into, what advantages introverts have in a sales situation. But there's a difference between being an introvert and being shy. Now, shy means you have anxiety around being around people. And I was like that when I was really, really young. I didn't have very many friends when I was growing up in elementary school. And I would have this queasy feeling in my stomach, and talking to people. I was just, totally socially inept. And when I was in high school, and actually I was a year younger than everybody else when I was in high school because back in those days when I was in elementary school, they advanced me a half a year twice. So let's say, you're 14 years old. If you're a year younger than everybody else in high school, it makes a difference. It's not such a big deal. Let's say if you're in your 20s and you're a year younger than somebody else. So I had this terrible anxiety about talking to people. And especially when I was in high school, even, talking to girls just totally terrified me. And I felt like I was trapped in this box and I hated that feeling. I said, I want to go on a date, maybe even get a first kiss, So I literally, through sheer willpower, I can remember times where I would dial a girl on the phone and it would go ring, ring, and I would hang up before they answered because oh my God, what am I going to say? And then I said, okay, oh, it's 9 o'clock. It's too late to call. And I just stopped. I said, okay, I need to get over this. So finally I dialed the phone and let it ring and the girl answered. And I said, oh my gosh. I said, hi, this is Ron. And they said, oh, Ron, how are you? And we chatted and then had a nice conversation. And then I hung up and I said, wow, that wasn't so bad.
Right?
And so, through sheer willpower and then uh, during college, after I got out of the Air Force, I discovered Toastmasters. And my goal was to just gain more confidence. I think it was Dale Carnegie who said that the number one way to develop more confidence is to learn public speaking. And so I went through their program. In fact, I recommend that to my sales coaching clients. If you want to create more confidence, join a Toastmasters club. And they don't expect you to have any experience. It's very supportive. So I went through the program and then I discovered personal development. I went to different seminars and I said, oh my gosh, this is what, because I'm passionate about learning and also applying what I learn. And so years ago, I went to a Tony Robbins seminar. It was 4 days and literally walked on fire. And when I say that to people, they go, oh my gosh, did you burn your feet?
No.
Nothing at all. But, and you're nodding your head. But that totally exploded my whole mindset, eliminated most of my limiting beliefs. And that was probably the most important life-changing event that I ever went to. And I've gone several times more. I follow Tony Robbins quite a bit. He's definitely a one-of-a-kind person in this whole universe. So it started when I was a shy kid with a lot of anxiety, went through Toastmasters, developed personal development. And so when I was in high tech, I spent about a 20-year career there, but I had a side business because we've all heard the phrase multiple streams of income. So I had this side business that I was doing. It was a business to consumer. I sold consumer products, and it was a network marketing model, so building a team. And when the company offered this generous package to leave, I said, I'll leave. Give me the money. I said, oh, I'll be my own boss. And lo and behold, it wasn't as easy as I thought, because not only am I an introvert, but I'm more laid back, you might say. And so I was going through my savings, the bills had piled up, and I said, okay, this has got to stop, because I was determined not to have to go back and find a job. I was having, I was on salary, so I got a salary every month, but I was working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, sometimes on call. And I said, been there, done that. I'm going to make my business work. So I'm really passionate about learning, and I'm a good learner. And so I would look for advice. I'd look at books, look at online seminars, trainings, videos to learn how to sell. And then I met Eric Lofholm. I didn't know who he was, but he was giving a short talk, about 40 minutes. And the talk was about how you can feel good about being in sales. And I said, I want to learn about that. And I was sitting in the front row. There were about 20 people in the room. And Eric, he's a fantastic public speaker. He's spoken at Get Motivated, where there'd be 1,000 or more people in the group. But when he's at a social event, he actually says that he's very quiet. He'll stand in the corner. And so when he was up there speaking in front of this group, that energy, that low energy level really resonated with me. He wasn't some superstar, high energy, hey, let's go out there and make the deals. You can do it, close more sales. Totally not. And then he said, for 3 years back in his 20s, he was the #1 trainer for Tony Robbins. And so that instantly created a connection. So he had an affirmation that he said, if you want to be comfortable in sales, here's an affirmation that you can read to yourself every day for 30 days. And he asked a question to the audience. He said, how many of you have a negative image of people in sales? And I raised my hand, and other people did also. And how many of you feel uncomfortable asking for the money? I said, yeah, me. I was giving away products, consumer products, at my wholesale price. And I said, I can't do this and pay the bills at the same time. So I'll briefly say what the affirmation is. I can still remember it like it was yesterday. And this was back in 2010. I was a student of his program. He called it a protege program. And he put up this slide. I took a picture of it and read the affirmation every day for 30 days. And it says, selling equals service. Mm. Sell from honesty, integrity, and compassion. Selling is about leading people, and selling is about moving people to action. It's not about high pressure, and it's not about arm twisting. And when I saw that, I said, that is me totally. And so I enrolled in his program, took some advanced training, and got to know Eric on a personal level. He was doing live events in the Bay Area, and got to know him. So I would help at his events, registration, back table, and things like that. And at one point, he was saying to a group that Ron is one of my best students ever at learning his content. And so at one point, this was back in 2012, he was starting this new division of independent sales trainers representing his brand. And so he said to me when we were at a live event, he said, Ron, I think you'd be really good at this. And I said, yeah, I think I'd be good too, because I'd had, confidence in Toastmasters, speaking in front of groups. And so that started this journey of being an independent sales trainer, self-employed, and he and I keep in touch regularly now today. And so I transitioned from this shy kid, having this queasy feeling, to now I'll speak in front of groups. People say, oh, Ron, you're such a great speaker. And I said, well, you don't know the backstory of where I came from. And that's why as a natural introvert, if somebody's in sales, in fact, on my LinkedIn profile, my tagline is introverts rock your sales. And one of my most recent coaching clients saw that, and we had to exchange messages, and led to a phone call, and she became one of my clients. So it's kind of a long story about where I was, where I am now, And so I can relate to somebody who's struggling as an introvert in a sales situation.
Mm-hmm. That money piece is probably the piece I hear most with my own clients. And I actually remember when I have a publishing package that is $25,000. And I actually remember the first time I pitched it, I stuttered when I got to the price, and I stuttered 3 times. Like, I regrouped, went back in, and I was like, wow, I'm doing exactly what my own clients do. But that is really,
But you're human.
I know, but I'm no, I'm not. No. That's
Well, you're
really,
superhuman in some
you
ways.
go, there you go. Thank you. It's super hard for some people, especially when they have their own business, to price appropriately and to ask for money.
It is. It is. And part of what I teach or what I learned from Eric Lofholm and one of his mentors is knowing exactly what to say before you do a presentation, before you make an offer, and literally write it down or have an outline to know what to say, and also anticipate any objections that might come up. You might call it concerns. So, in fact, on the back of my business card, it says, do you know exactly what to say to get somebody to buy from you? Because if you wing it, you get wing it results.
Mm.
And I find that a lot of people, they just wing it a lot. And so if somebody asks, so preparation ahead of time, and practice too. It's role playing or just practicing, getting better and better. And I'm always, refining what I do. I think that life is a long journey of personal development. I feel I can always grow and get better, but you're not alone. And I felt that too in asking for the money.
Hmm.
So there are ways to feel comfortable about that. The main thing is knowing that you have value in what you offer, and also the idea that the client is probably going to get more value beyond just the price or the investment.
Hmm.
So when people think about it in those terms, you can say you have a $25,000 package, but if they get a value 2x, 3x, 10x, then they are actually going to benefit. So part of it is reinforcing that belief system, because I'm a big student of mindset and I teach that to my clients and also at my meetup, is that there are these limiting beliefs, because I can tell somebody A to Z all the how-tos, but if they have a belief that limits them to do what they already know, sometimes people are overeducated and underactivated.
Hmm.
So I found I don't need more information. I just need to do what I know I should do.
And just do it. That call from when you were a teenager is a perfect example. Sometimes you just have to go do it and see, am I going to make an idiot out of myself? And sometimes you might, but you have to do it again.
I've made an idiot of myself, and I say, okay, done that, get over it,
Yeah, right.
fast,
Been
fast.
there, done that. I'm humiliated. That's it. Let's call it a day. That's how I got my sense of humor. So, what's the number one skill you teach your clients? What do you think that is inside of sales?
I would say the ideal thing is the number one skill or aspect to be aware of is what is your mindset. And there's when we talk about mindset, there's actually a book called Mindset, and I think that's where that term mindset became really popular. And there are two types of mindsets. You can have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And a fixed mindset would say, oh, I'm only as good as what I know. It's hard for me to change. A growth mindset would say, I can learn anything if I apply myself. So that having that awareness of and also of your self-talk,
Hmm.
I find is a real key for people. Because again, I could spend hours and hours and hours on how-tos, but it's also the why to. Why are you doing this? And I would say that's probably the most valuable starting point that I work with. And then we can get down into, so it's more the mindset determines your strategy, and then the tactics can be learned on a repetitious basis.
Mhm.
So I would say mindset is critical, absolutely critical.
So in all of that, we all have challenges with closing. What do you think the biggest challenges are that you see? And I mean, and I don't mean like the obstacles and overcoming obstacles, but just getting us to the sales point.
Ah, okay. Well, one thing I say in a humorous way, but I think it has a lot of relevance, is selling is a lot like dating. So let's say a guy and a gal, they get together and say they meet and they say, oh, let's have coffee. So they have coffee. So let's say the guy says, let's say if you and I had coffee and you were single and I was single, actually I am single, but I would
Well,
say,
well,
hey,
so
Juliet,
am I. No.
okay. I would say, hey, Juliet, I had a great time having coffee with you. How'd you like to move in, maybe get married?
Okay, so here's where I would say, "Oh, excuse me while I go to the bathroom."
And
I'd
never
go
come
in the
back.
bathroom, I'd call the Uber and check out if I could MacGyver my way through the emergency exit without getting caught.
Exactly.
It's
You go like this, who is this guy? I don't know him. And basically the idea is it's too much too soon.
uh
So you have coffee. Maybe you get together for a glass of wine. Maybe, a week or goodbye, you'd have lunch. Maybe you'd have dinner. Maybe you'd spend the day hiking, whatever. Maybe you'd spend the weekend. So over a period of weeks or months, you get to know somebody, then you might become exclusive. So the analogy is a lot of people, most people that I know, they tend to talk too much. In fact, here's kind of a sideline. If somebody is at a networking meeting, uh, I learned from a woman who's an expert in neural marketing. And she said that there's a part of our reptilian brain that has an 8-second attention span. So here's a bonus tip. So I learned from her, here's what I used to say. If I go to a networking event, where's a business mixer where you meet people, people would say, oh, Ron, what do you do? I would say, oh, I help people make more sales in insurance, finance, real estate, whatever. But now I changed it. So if somebody says, what do I do? Instead of answering the question, I ask them a question so that in that 8 seconds, I can get their attention. So I'll say to them, do you know what the biggest mistake people make when they try to make a sale? And people say, is it this? Or, well, I don't know. I'd say the biggest mistake people make when they try to make a sale is they talk too much. I was telling one of my clients, you talk too much. When you're talking, you should be asking questions and you should be listening 80% of the time. So indirectly, I'm saying I'm a sales trainer, sales coach. So again, knowing what to say, and back to the close. So what I learned from Eric and what I implemented myself and also teach my clients is there's actually a step-by-step process before you get to the close or the offer. And the number one question we get a lot is, how do I close more sales? And one of the steps in the process is asking questions of the client in terms of what are their needs, what are their challenges, and so on, digging deep before I even say what I can do to help them.
Mhm.
And what that does is it creates rapport for one, because I'm not just talking, hoping that, I'll say something that'll say, oh, I need that. So the number one tip is have the client ask what you have to offer before you get to the close.
Mhm.
And of course, you want to share the benefits, what are the benefits to them for their specific one or two challenges. And so you add value in terms of what you contribute. And so when you get to the point where you're going to do this power close, to me, I was listening to Eric and he said, how many of you would like to hear what the power close is? And I raised my hand. So again, you identify the needs, you share the benefits, and then at the end, the power close is, how would you like to get started? And then you shut your mouth and you wait for the other person to say something. And if you've done a good job, they'll either say, yeah, well, they'll either say yes, no, or I need to think about it. So if they say, have some concern, you can say, then there's the dealing with the concerns. But in many cases, they'll say, yes, let's get started. So I'll say, okay, well, here are the terms, let's get started. So it's not manipulative. It's not saying, you have these power closes
Mhm.
that used to be much more common years and years ago. Because I think today it's all about relationships. And I see too many spam email, even spam LinkedIn messages where I'll see a message from somebody say, "Oh, Ron, I see you're a coach. What I do is I can help you make a multiple six-figure incomes. We have this automatic, lead generation system. You don't have to do anything. We'll fill your inbox and phone with leads." In fact, one time I got a message like that, and I said, "How is this message working for you? If you're not getting the results you want, I can probably help you."
Yeah, I call that pitch slapping. When someone comes up and
Okay.
they just
Oh,
pitch you, they don't know you. They kind of, the publishing company I own, we get a lot of books in where people write them themselves, and it's like barf a book. Pitch slapping. Pitch slapping
I
is
like that Barfa book, right?
the pitching version of that, where I'm going to pitch you, and then if you don't say anything, I'm going to walk away. I have no interest in knowing you. I just want to pitch you. It's sad.
It's very, almost rude actually,
Mm,
because
it is.
you're not being respectful of that other person. You're thinking it's all about me, me, me.
Hmm. Well,
Hmm.
that's the way you can tell the difference between people who serve and people who sell a lot. Our mutual friend, Tina Greenbaum, I just mentioned her this morning on our coaching call. She called me just livid one day. She had a coaching call with a company that she had reached out to, and they didn't ask her any of her wants and needs. They didn't find out any information. They just went right into the sale. And she was really upset about it. And that's how people get when they don't feel heard and they don't feel seen. They just feel sold to. So
Exactly,
that's a really
exactly.
great point. So, Ron, where can we find you if we want to find out more about what you do?
Probably the most comprehensive way that people can learn more about me is on my LinkedIn profile. They can just search for Ron Hori, Ronhori. And I had this thought that I was going to mention. It kind of escaped me, but I think it'll come back as we chat. Not about where the people can find me, but
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I- okay. And do you have a website?
it's in construction, you might say,
Under construction.
under
Okay. So go
construction.
over and find Ron over on LinkedIn. How about an email address?
Oh, very simple. Ron Hori, Ronhori @gmail.com.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. I mean, this is really helpful for those out there who are really like introverted. And this
Oh,
is
I
all.
just remembered what I thought about.
Oh, okay.
So one of the key skills that introverts have is they're very good listeners. And they have, as opposed, there's nothing wrong with introverts. There's nothing wrong with extroverts. One is neither better than the other. They both have good skills. So one thing I realized in studying more about the differences between introverts and extroverts, one of the main differences between introverts and extroverts is extroverts increase their internal energy level when they're around people. They could be the life of the party, they're chatting, they talk to everybody in the room. Whereas introverts, and since I'm a natural introvert, when they're around people, it actually lowers my internal energy level.
Hmm.
So if I do a talk in front of people, I do talks at offices for free, then I have to either be by myself or among a small group of people to recharge my energy batteries, you might say. But one of the key skills that is a plus for introverts is they listen really well. And if they're faced with a complex issue in a selling situation, they love to dive into the solution area, and they don't rely on this personality ethos to be able to make a sale. They like to listen, they like to ask questions. So being an introvert definitely has its advantages. And that's what I learned. I learned I didn't have to reinvent myself. I could be myself and be successful. So that was a thought that escaped me and just came back.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. A lot of great information.
Thank you, Juliet. I appreciate your invitation to be on the call. I hope the listeners got some value. And if people want to connect with me or learn more, I'd be happy to chat.
Great.